हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज हम देखेंगे एनसीईआरटी का क्लास 6 का पॉलिटी। तो आज हम देखेंगे फर्स्ट चैप्टर जो कि है यूनिट 1 का डाइवर्सिटी का चैप्टर 1, अंडरस्टैंडिंग डाइवर्सिटी। तो शुरू करते हैं हमारा आज का चैप्टर। Look around you in the classroom. Do you see anyone who looks exactly like you do? In this chapter, you will learn that people are different from each other in many ways. Not only do they look different, but they might also belong to different regional, cultural, or religious backgrounds. These differences enrich our lives in many ways and also make them more fun. All these different people who come from all kinds of backgrounds and belong to all kinds of religions and cultures help to make India so interesting and so diverse. What does diversity add to our lives? How did India become like this? Are all kinds of difference a part of diversity? Can diversity also be a part of unity? Read this chapter to find some answers. 3 children around your age have drawn the figures above. Use the empty box to draw your human figure. Is your drawing similar to any of the others? The chances are that your drawing is quite different from the other 3, which you can see are quite different from each other. This is because each one of us has a unique drawing style. We not only don't look exactly like each other but also differ in terms of language we speak, our cultural backgrounds, the religious rituals and we observe, and of course the way we draw. Fill out the following information about yourself. When I go out, I like wearing. At home, I speak in. My favorite sport in. I like reading books about. Now ask your teacher to help you check. How many of you have similar answers? Is there anyone whose list matches yours exactly? Probably not. But many of you may have similar answers. How many like reading the same kind of books? How many different languages are spoken by the students in your class? By now, you must have recognized the many ways in which you are quite like some of your classmates and the other ways in which you are different from them. Making friends. Do you think it would be easy for you to make friends with someone who was very different from you? Read the following story and think about it. I had meant it as a joke made up for a small red boy who sold newspapers at the Janpat crossing at the busy intersection. Every time I circled past, he would run after me holding out the English paper and screaming out the evening's headlines in a mixture of Hindi and English words. This time I stopped by the pavement and asked for the Hindi paper. His mouth fell open. You mean you know Hindi? He asked. Of course, I said as I paid for the paper. Why, what did you think? He paused. But you look so Angrez, he said. You mean you can even read Hindi? Of course I can, I said, this time a little impatiently. I can speak, read, and write Hindi. Hindi is one of the subjects I study in school. Subjects? He asked. How could I explain what a subject was to someone who had never been to school? Well, it is something I began, but the lights changed and the honking behind me grew 100-fold, and I let myself be pushed along with the rest of the traffic. The next day he was there again, smiling at me and holding out a Hindi paper. भैया, he said, आपका अखबार. अब बताइए ये सब्जेक्ट क्या चीज़ है? The English word sounded strange on his tongue. It sounded like its other meaning in English, to be ruled by someone else. Oh, it's just something to study, I said, and then, because the red light had come on, I asked him, have you ever been to school? Never, he answered. And he added proudly, I began working when I was so high. He measured himself against my cycle seat. First, my mother used to come with me, but I can do it all alone. Where is your mother now? I asked, but then the lights changed and I was up. I heard him yell from somewhere behind me. She is in Meerut with the rest was drowned out. My name is Samir, he said the next day, and very shyly he asked what's yours. It was incredible. My bicycle wobbled. My name is Samir too, I said. What? His eyes lit up. Yes, I grinned at him. It's another name for Hanuman's father, you know. So now you are Samir Ek and I am Samir Do, he said triumphantly. Something like that, I answered, and then I held out my hand. Haath milao Samir Do. His hands nestled in mine like a little bird. I could still feel its warmth as I cycled away. The next day he did not have his usual smile for me. There is a trouble in Meerut, he said. Many people are being killed there in the riots. I looked at the headlines, communal riots. It blazed. But Samir, I began. I am a Muslim, Samir, he said in answer, and all my people are in Meerut. His eyes filled with tears, and when I touched his shoulder, he would not look up. He was not at the crossing the day after, neither the day after nor ever again, and no newspaper in English or Hindi can tell me where my Samir Do has gone. Name 3 ways in which Samir Ek and Samir Do were different. Did these differences prevent them from becoming friends? While Samir Ek is more familiar with English, Samir Do speaks Hindi. Although they both are more at home in different languages, they still communicated with each other. They made the effort to do so because this was what was important to them. Samir Ek and Samir Do also come from different religious and cultural backgrounds. While Samir Ek is a Hindu, Samir Do is a Muslim. Different religious and cultural backgrounds such as this are an aspect of diversity. Make a list of the festivals that might have been celebrated by the two boys, Samir Ek, Samir Do. Can you think of a situation in which you made friends with someone who was very different from you? Write a story that describes this. In addition to their diverse religious and cultural backgrounds, there are other ways in which Samir Ek and Samir Do are different from each other. For example, while Samir Ek goes to school, Samir Do sells newspaper. Samir Do did not have the opportunity to attend school. Perhaps you have noticed that there are several people in the area where you live who are poor and who don't have enough to eat or wear, and sometimes not even a place to live. This difference is not the same as the one we have seen. This difference is not the same as the one we have seen earlier. Here we are talking not of difference but of inequality. Inequality comes about when a person does not have the resources and opportunities that are available to other persons. The caste system is another example of inequality. According to this, society was divided into different groups depending upon the work that people did, and they were supposed to remain in those groups. So if your parents were potters, you could only become a potter, nothing else. This system was considered irreversible, and because you were not supposed to change your profession, it was not considered necessary for you to know anything more than what you needed in your profession. This created a situation of inequality. You will read more about this and other inequalities in the following chapters. What does diversity add to our lives? Just as Samir Ek and Samir Do became friends, you might have friends who are very different from you. You have probably eaten different kinds of foods in their homes, celebrated different festivals with them, tried out the clothes they wear, and learned some of their languages as well. Make a list of the food that you have eaten from different parts of India. Make a list of the languages besides your mother tongue that you can speak at least 1 or 2 words of. You probably like reading and hearing stories and adventures about different animals, people, and even ghosts. Perhaps you even enjoy making up stories yourself. Many young people feel happy when they read a good story because it gives them lots of ideas to make up more stories. People who write stories get their ideas from all sorts of different places, from books and real life and from their imagination. Some may have lived in forests close to animals and chosen to write of their fights and friendships. Others read real accounts of kings and queens and wrote stories about love and honor. Some dipped into their own childhood memories of school and friends and wrote stories of adventure. Imagine if all the storytellers and writers that you have heard and read so far were forced to live in a place where all people wore the same two colors, red and white, ate the same food, maybe potatoes, took care of the same two animals, for example the deer and the cat, and to entertain themselves played snakes and ladders. What kind of stories do you think they would write? Imagine that you are a writer or an artist who lives in the place described above. Either write a story or draw a picture of your life here. Do you think you would enjoy living in a place like this? List 5 different things that you would miss the most if you lived here. Diversity in India. India is a country of many diversities. We speak different languages, have various types of food, celebrate different festivals, practice different religions. But actually, if you think about it, we do many things that are similar except that we do them in different ways. How do we explain diversity? A little more than 200 years ago, or long before, the train, aeroplane, bus, or car became a part of our lives. People traveled from one part of the world to another in ships, or on horses, on camels, or on foot. List 3 different ways in which people in India do the following. One of the possible answers has been provided for you already. Different ways in which people pray, different ways in which people get married, different ways in which people dress, different ways in which people greet each other, different ways in which people cook rice. Often they went in search of new lands or new places to settle in or for people to trade with, and because it took so long to travel, once they got to a place, people stayed there often for a long time. Many others left their homes because there were famines and drought and they could not get enough to eat. Some went in search of work while others left because there was a war. Sometimes, as they began to make their homes in new places, people began to change a little, and at other times they managed to do things in the old ways. So their language, food, music, religions became a mix of the old and the new, and out of this intermixing of culture came something new and different. The history of many places shows us how many different cultures influences have helped to shape life and culture there. Thus, regions became very diverse because of their unique histories. Similarly, diversity also comes about when people adapt their lives to the geographical area in which they live. For example, living near the sea is quite different from living in a mountainous area. Not only do people have different clothing and eating habits, but even the kinds of work they do are different. In cities, it is often easy to forget how closely people's lives are tied to their physical surroundings. This is because in the city, people seldom grow their own vegetables and grains. Instead, they depend on the market to buy all the food and other goods that they need. Let us try to understand what we mean when we say that historical and geographical factors influence the diversity of a region. We can do this by reading about life in two different parts of the country, Kerala and Ladakh. Look at the map of India in an atlas and look at Kerala and Ladakh. Can you list three ways in which the different geographical location of these two regions would influence the following? The food people eat, the clothes they wear, the work they do. Ladakh is a desert in the mountains in the eastern part of Jammu and Kashmir. Very little agriculture is possible here since this region does not receive any rain and is covered in snow for a large part of the year. There are very few trees that can grow in the region. For drinking water, people depend on the melting snow during the summer months. People here keep sheep and goats. The goats in this region are special because they produce pashmina wool. This wool is prized and pashmina shawls cost a lot of money. The people in Ladakh carefully collect the wool of the goats and sell this to the traders from Kashmir. Pashmina shawls are cheaply woven in Kashmir. The people eat meat and milk products like cheese and butter. Each family owns some goats, cows, and yak cows. Being a desert did not mean that Ladakh did not attract a share of traders. It was considered a good trade route as it had many passes through which caravans traveled to what is today called Tibet. These caravans carried textiles and spices, raw silk, and carpets. Buddhism reached Tibet via Ladakh. Ladakh is also called Little Tibet. Islam was introduced in this region more than 400 years ago, and there is a significant Muslim population here. Ladakh has a very rich oral tradition of songs and poems. Local versions of the Tibetan national epic, the Kesar Saga, are performed and sung by both Muslim and Buddhist. Kerala is a state in the southwest corner of India. It is surrounded by the sea on one side and hills on the other. A number of spices like pepper, cloves, and cardamoms are grown on the hills. It is spices that made the region an attractive place for traders. Jewish and Arab traders were the first to come here. The Apostle of Christ, Saint Thomas, is believed to have come here nearly 2000 years ago, and he is credited with bringing Christianity to India. Many Arab traders also came and settled down here. Ibn Battuta, who traveled here a little less than 700 years ago, wrote a travelogue in which he describes the lives of Muslims and says that they were a highly respected community. The Portuguese discovered the sea route to India from Europe when Vasco da Gama landed with his ship here. Because of all these various historical influences, people in Kerala practice different religions such as Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism. The fishing nets used here look exactly like the Chinese fishing nets and are called chinawala. Even the utensil used for frying is called chinachati, and it is believed that the word chin could have come from China. The fertile land and climate are suited to growing rice, and a majority of people here eat rice, fish, and vegetables. While Kerala and Ladakh are quite different in terms of their geographical features, the history of both regions has seen similar cultural influences. Both regions were influenced by Chinese and Arab traders. It was the geography of Kerala which allowed for the cultivation of spices, and the special geographical location of Ladakh and its wool that drew traders to these regions. Thus, history and geography are often tied in the cultural life of a region. The influence of diverse culture is not merely a thing of the past. Our present lives are all about moving from place to place for work, and with each move, our cultural traditions and way of life slowly become part of the new place we are in. Similarly, in our own neighborhoods, we live close to people from several communities. Our daily lives are about the ways in which we do things together and hear stories about each other's lives, customs, and traditions. Unity in diversity. India's diversity have always been recognized as a source of strength. When the British ruled India, women and men from different cultural, religious, and regional backgrounds came together to oppose them. India's freedom movement had thousands of people of different backgrounds in it. They worked together to decide joint actions, they went to jail together, and they found different ways to oppose the British. Interestingly, the British thought they could divide Indians because they were so different and then continue to rule them. But the people showed how they could be different and yet be united in their battle against the British. Don't forget the days of blood, O friend. In the midst of your happiness, remember to shed a tear for us. The hunter has thrown away every single flower. Do plant a flower in the desert garden, dear friend. Having fallen to bullets we slept in Jallianwala Bagh, do light a lamp on this lonely grave, O friend. The blood of Hindus and Muslims flows together today. Do soak your robe in this river of blood, dear friend. Some rot in jails while others lie in their graves. Do shed a few tears for them, O friend. India's People's Theatre Association. This song was sung after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Amritsar, in which a British general opened fire on a large group of unarmed, peaceful people, killing many and wounding even more. Men and women, Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims, rich and poor, had gathered to protest against the British. This song was composed and sung to honor the memory of those brave people. Songs and symbols that emerged during the freedom struggle serve as a constant reminder of our country's rich tradition of respect for diversity. Do you know the story of the Indian flag? It was used as a symbol of protest against the British by people everywhere. In his book, The Discovery of India, Jawaharlal Nehru says that Indian unity is not something imposed from the outside, but rather it was something deeper and within its fold. The widest tolerance of belief and custom was practiced, and every variety acknowledged and even encouraged. It was Nehru who coined the phrase unity in diversity to describe the country. India's national anthem, composed by Rabindranath Tagore, is another expression of the unity of India. In what way does the national anthem describe this unity? तो यह है इस चैप्टर का एक्सरसाइज और इसी के साथ हमारा फर्स्ट चैप्टर कंप्लीट हो गया है। तो अभी हम शुरू करेंगे चैप्टर 2 जो कि है डाइवर्सिटी एंड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। तो शुरू करते हैं हमारा ये चैप्टर। In the previous chapter, you have discussed the meanings of diversity. Sometimes people who are different from others are teased, laughed at, or not included in a certain activity or group. We feel hurt, angry, helpless, or sad when friends or others treat us in such ways. Have you ever wondered why this happened? In this chapter, we will try and explore how such experiences are related to the society we live in. We will look at how they are connected to the inequalities that exist around us. Difference and prejudice. There are many things that make us what we are: how we live, the languages we speak, what we eat, where, the games we play, and the things we celebrate. All of these are influenced both by the geography and history of the place where we live. You will get an idea of how diverse India is if you look even briefly at the following statement. There are 8 major religions in the world. Every single one of them is practiced in India. We have more than 1600 languages that are people's mother tongues, and there are more than 100 dance forms. Yet, this diversity is not always celebrated. This is because we feel safe and secure with people who look, talk, dress, and think like us. Sometimes, when we meet people who are different from us, we may find them strange and unfamiliar. At times, we may not understand or know the reasons why they are different from us. People also form certain attitudes and opinions about others who are not like them. Some of these statements see prejudice. Look at the statement below that you believe to be true about rural and urban life in India. Tick mark those that you agree with. Do you have a prejudice against rural or urban people? Find out if this is shared by others and discuss the reasons why people have these prejudices. Can you list some of the prejudices that you have noticed around you? How do they affect the ways in which people treat each other? On rural people, more than 50% of all Indians live in villages. People in villages do not like to use modern technology. In peak harvesting and plantation seasons, families spend 12 to 14 hours working in the fields. Villagers are forced to migrate to cities in search of work. On urban people, life in the city is easy. People here are spoiled and lazy. In cities, families spend very little time with each other. People in city only care about money, not about people. Living in a city is expensive. A large part of people's earning is spent on rent and transport. Some of these statements see villagers as ignorant and see people in cities as money-minded and lazy. When our opinions about certain people are always negative, seeing them as lazy, stingy as some of these statements, then these become prejudices that we carry about them. Prejudice means to judge other people negatively or see them as inferior. When we think that only one particular way is the best and right way to do things, we often end up not respecting others, who may prefer to do things things differently. For example, if we think English is the best language and other languages are not important, we are judging these other languages negatively. As a result, we might not respect people who speak languages other than English. We can be prejudiced about many things: people's religious beliefs, the color of their skin, the region they come from, the accent they speak in, the clothes they wear, etc. Often our prejudices about others are so strong that we don't want to form friendships with them. At times, we may even act in ways that hurt them. Creating stereotypes. All of us are familiar with gender differences. What does it mean to be a boy or a girl? Many of you would say we are born as boys and girls. It is a given. What is there to think about? Let's see if this is the case. Arrange the statements given below in these two sections according to what you think is appropriate for the section. They are well behaved, they are soft spoken and gentle, they are physically strong, they are naughty, they are good at dance and painting, they don't cry, they are rowdy, they are good at sport, they are good at cooking, they are emotional. Now check with your teacher's help who has put which statement where. Find out and discuss people's reason for doing this. Are the qualities you put in for boys something that boys are born with? If we take the statement they don't cry, you will see that this is a quality that is generally associated with boys and men. As babies or children, when boys fall and hurt themselves, their parents and other family members often console them by saying, "Don't cry, you are a boy. Boys are brave, they don't cry." As children grow up, they start believing that boys do not cry, so that even if a boy feels like crying, he stops himself from doing so. He also believes that crying is a sign of weakness. So even though both boys and girls sometimes want to cry, especially if they are angry or in pain, as they grow older, boys learn to teach themselves not to cry. If a grown boy cries, then he feels that others will either tease him or laugh at him, and so he stops himself from doing so in front of others. This is the way boys are, and this is how girls are. These are statements we hear constantly and accept without even thinking, and we start believing that each one of us must behave accordingly. We fit all boys and all girls into an image that society creates around us. The children you see in the illustrations here were seen as disabled. This term has been changed, and how now the term used is children with special needs. Common stereotypes about them are given in large letters. Their own feelings and thoughts too are given. Discuss what these children are saying about stereotypes regarding them and why. Do you think children with special needs should be a part of regular schools or study in a separate school? Give reasons for your answer. You can take other statements such as they are soft and gentle or they are well behaved and discuss how these are applied to girls. Do girls possess these qualities at birth or do they learn such behavior from others? What do you think about girls who are not soft and gentle and those who are naughty? When we fix people into one image, we create a stereotype. When people say that those who belong to a particular country, religion, sex, race, or economic background are stingy, lazy, criminal, or dumb, they are using stereotypes. There are stingy and generous people everywhere in every country, in every religion, and in every group, whether rich or poor, male or female. And just because some people are like that, it is not fair to think that everyone will be the same. Stereotypes stop us from looking at each person as a unique individual with his or her own special qualities and skills that are different from others. They fit large numbers of peoples into only one pattern or type. Stereotypes affect all of us as they prevent us from doing certain things that we might otherwise be good at. Inequality and discrimination. Discrimination happens when people act on their prejudices or stereotypes. If you do something to put other people down, if you stop them from taking part in certain activities and taking up jobs, or stop them from living in certain neighborhoods, prevent them from taking water from the same well or hand pump, or not allow them to drink tea in the same cups or glasses as others, you are discriminating against them. Discrimination can take place because of several reasons. You probably recall from the previous chapter that Samir Ek and Samir Do were different from each other in many ways. For example, they belong to different religions. This is an aspect of diversity. However, this diversity can also be a source of discrimination. Groups of people who may speak a certain language, follow a particular religion, live in specific regions, etc., may be discriminated against as their customs or practices may be seen as inferior. Another difference between the two Samirs was in their economic backgrounds. Samir though was poor. This difference, as you have read earlier, is not form of diversity but of inequality. People who are poor do not have the resources or the money to meet their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. They experience discrimination in offices, in hospitals, schools, etc., where they are treated badly because they are poor. Some people may experience both kinds of discrimination. They are poor and they belong to groups whose culture is not valued. Tribals, some religious groups, and even particular regions are discriminated against for one or more of these reasons. In the following section, we will look at how a famous Indian was discriminated against. This will help us understand the ways in which caste was used to discriminate against large numbers of people. A common stereotype about some Muslims is that they are not interested in educating girls and therefore do not send girls to school. However, studies have now shown that Poverty amongst Muslims is an important reason why Muslim girls do not attend school or drop out from school after a few years. Wherever effort has been made to reach education to the poor, there the Muslim community has shown an interest in sending their girls to school. For example, in the state of Kerala, the distance between the school and the home is not much. There is a good government bus service that helps teachers reach schools in rural areas, and over 60% of the teachers are women. These factors have helped children from poorer families, including Muslim girls, attend schools in much larger numbers. In other states where such efforts have not been made, children from poorer families, whether Muslim, tribal, or so called lower caste, find it difficult to attend school. Therefore, poverty, not religion, is the cause for non attendance of Muslim girls in school. On being discriminated against. People are engaged in different kinds of work like teaching, carpentry, pottery, weaving, fishing, farming, etc. to earn a livelihood. However, certain kinds of work are valued more than others. Activities like cleaning, washing, cutting hair, picking garbage are seen as tasks that are of less value, and people who do this work are seen as dirty or impure. This belief is an important aspect of the caste system. In the caste system, communities, groups of people were placed in a sort of ladder where each caste was either above or below the other. Those who placed themselves at the top of this ladder called themselves upper caste and saw themselves as superior. The groups who were placed at the bottom of the ladder were seen as unworthy and called untouchables. Dalit is a term that people belonging to so-called lower caste use to address themselves. Therefore, they prefer this word to untouchable. Dalit means those who have been broken. This word, according to Dalit, shows how social prejudices and discrimination have broken the Dalit people. The government refers to this group of people as scheduled castes. Caste rules were set which did not allow the so-called untouchables to take on work other than what they were meant to do. For example, some groups were forced to pick garbage and remove dead animals from the village, but they were not allowed to enter the homes of the upper caste or take water from the village well, or even enter temples. Their children could not sit next to the children of other castes in school. Thus, upper caste acted in ways which did not give the so-called untouchables the same rights as the NCERT. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, one of the greatest leaders of India, shares his first experience of caste-based discrimination, which took place in 1901 when he was just 9 years old. He had gone with his brothers and cousins to meet his father in Koregaon, which is now in Maharashtra. Long did we wait, but no one turned up. An hour elapsed and the station master came to inquire. He asked us for our tickets. We showed them to him. He asked us why we tarried. We told him that we were bound for Koregaon and that we were waiting for father or his servant to come, but that neither had turned up and that we did not know how to reach Koregaon. We were well-dressed children. From our dress or talk, no one could make out that we were children of the untouchables. Indeed, the station master was quite sure we were Brahmin children and was extremely touched at the plight in which he found us. As is usual among the Hindus, the station master asked us who we were. With a moment's thought, I blurted out that we were Mahars. Mahar is one of the communities which were treated as untouchables in the Bombay Presidency. He was stunned. His face underwent a sudden change. We could see that he was overpowered by a strange feeling of repulsion. As soon as he heard my reply, he went away to his room, and we stood where we were. 15 to 20 minutes elapsed. The sun was almost setting. Our father had not turned off, nor had he sent his servant. And now the station master has also left us. We were quite bewildered, and the joy and happiness which we felt at the beginning of the journey gave way to a feeling of extreme sadness. After half an hour, the station master returned and asked us what we proposed to do. We said that if we could get a bullock cart on hire, we would go to Koregaon, and if it was not very far, we would like to start straightway. There were many bullock carts plying for hire, but my reply to the station master that we were mahars had gone round among the cartmen, and not one of them was prepared to suffer being polluted and to demean himself carrying passengers of the untouchable classes. We were prepared to pay double the fare, but we found that money did not work. The station master, who was negotiating on our behalf, stood silent, not knowing what to do. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar is considered the father of the Indian Constitution and is also the best known leader of the Dalits. Dr. Ambedkar fought for the rights of the Dalit community. He was born into the Mahar caste, which was considered untouchable. The Mahars were poor, owned no land, and children born to them also had to do the work their parents did. They lived in spaces outside the main village and were not allowed into the village. Dr. Ambedkar was the first person from his caste who completed his college education and went to England to become a lawyer. He encouraged the Dalits to send their children to school and college. He also urged the Dalits to take on different kinds of government jobs in order to move out of the caste system. He led many efforts of the Dalits to gain entry into temples. Later in life, he converted to Buddhism in his search for a religion that treated all members equally. Dr. Ambedkar believed that Dalits must fight the caste system and work towards a society based on respect, not just for a few but for all persons. Imagine how difficult it would be if people could not move easily from one place to the other. How insulting and hurtful it is to have people move away, refuse to touch you, or allow you to drink water from the same source as they do. This small incident shows how a simple task of going from one place to another in a cart was not available to the children. Even though they could pay the money, all the cartmen at the station refused to take the children. They acted in a discriminatory manner. So clearly, as the story shows us, caste-based discrimination is not only limited to preventing Dalits from undertaking certain economic activities, but it also denies them the respect and dignity given to others. Striving for equality. The struggle for freedom from British rule also included within it the struggle of large groups of people who not only fought against the British but also fought to be treated more equally. Dalits, women, tribals, and peasants fought against the inequalities they experienced in their lives. As pointed out earlier, many Dalits organized themselves to gain entry into temples. Women demanded that they should have as much a right to education as men did. Peasants and tribals fought to release themselves from the grasp of the moneylender and the high interest they were charged. When India became a nation in 1947, our leaders too were concerned about the different kinds of inequalities that existed. Those who wrote the Constitution of India, a document that laid out the rules by which the nation would function, were aware of the ways in which discrimination has been practiced in our society and how people have struggled against this. Many leaders of this struggle, such as Dr. Ambedkar, had also fought for the rights of the Dalits. So these leaders set out a vision and goals in the constitution to ensure that all the people of the India were considered equal. This equality of all persons is seen as the key value that unites us all as Indians. Everyone has equal rights and opportunities. Untouchability is seen as a crime and has been legally abolished by law. People are free to choose the kind of work they wish to do. Government jobs are open to all people. In addition, the Constitution also placed responsibility on the government to take specific steps to realize this right to equality for poor and other such marginal communities. The writers of the Constitution also said that respect for diversity was a significant element in ensuring equality. They felt that people must have the freedom to follow their religion, speak their language, celebrate their festival, and express themselves freely. They said that no one language, religion, or festival should become compulsory for all to follow. They said that the government must treat all religions equally. Therefore, India became a secular country where people of different religions and faiths have the freedom to practice and follow their religion without any fear of discrimination. This is seen as an important element of our unity, that we all live together and respect one another. Though these ideals are enshrined in our Constitution, this chapter points out that inequalities exist even today. Equality is a value that we have to keep striving for and not something which will happen automatically. People's struggle and positive actions by the government are necessary to make this a reality for all Indians. और ये है इस चैप्टर का क्वेश्चंस एक्सरसाइज, और इसी के साथ हमारा सेकेंड चैप्टर भी कंप्लीट होता है। तो आज के वीडियो में हमने चैप्टर 1 और चैप्टर 2 कंप्लीट कर लिया है। और अगर आप चैनल पे नए हैं तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए और नोटिफिकेशन आइकन पर क्लिक कर दीजिए। और अगर आपको वीडियो अच्छा लगे तो लाइक कर दीजिए। तो हमारा ये वीडियो यहीं तक था। थैंक यू, थैंक्स फॉर ज्वाइनिंग। हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो अब हम देखने वाले हैं एनसीईआरटी का पॉलिटी का क्लास 6, जिसमें आज हम देखेंगे यूनिट 2 जो कि है गवर्नमेंट। तो इसमें है हमारा चैप्टर 3 व्हाट इज़ गवर्नमेंट। तो शुरू करते हैं हमारा आज का चैप्टर। यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड द वर्ड गवर्नमेंट mentioned several times. In this chapter you will learn about what a government is and the important role it plays in our lives. What do governments do? How do they decide what to do? What is the difference between different types of governments, such as monarchies and democracies? Read more and find out. Every country needs a government to make decisions and get things done. These can be decisions about where to build roads and schools, or how to reduce the price of onions when they get too expensive, or ways to increase the supply of electricity. The government also takes action on many social issues. For example, it has several programs to help the poor. It does other important things such as running postal and railway services. The government also has the job of protecting the boundaries of the country and maintaining peaceful relations with other countries. It is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and have good health facilities. When there are natural disasters like the tsunami or an earthquake, it is the government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. If there is a dispute or if someone has committed a crime, you find people in a court. Courts are also part of the government. Perhaps you are wondering how governments manage to do all this and why it is necessary for them to do so. When human beings live and work together, there needs to be some amount of organization so that decisions can be made. Some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. For example, there is a need to control resources and protect the territory of a country. so people can feel secure. Governments do this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions, and implementing this among all the people living in their territory. Levels of government. Now that you know that the government is responsible for so many different things, can you think of how it manages to do all this? The government works at different levels, at the local level, at the level of the state, and at the national level. The local level means in your village, town, or locality. The state level would mean that which covers an entire state like Haryana or Assam, and the national level relates to the entire country. Later in this book, you will read about how local level government functions, and when you go into the next few classes, you will learn about how governments function at the state and central levels. Laws and the government. The government makes laws, and everyone who lives in the country has to follow this. This is the only way governments can function. Just like the government has the power to make decisions, similarly it has the power to enforce its decisions. For example, there is a law that says that all persons driving a motor vehicle must have a license. Any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined a large sum of money. Without these laws, the government's power to make decisions is not of much use. In addition to any actions that governments can take, there are also steps that people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. If a person feels, for example, that they were not hired for a job because of their religion or caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that the law is not being followed. The court can then give orders about what should be done. Types of government. Who gives the government this power to make decisions and enforce laws? The answer to this question depends on the type of government there is in a country. In a democracy, it is the people who give the government this power. They do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. Once elected, these persons form the government. In a democracy, the government has to explain its actions and defend its decisions to the people. Another form of government is monarchy. The monarch or king or queen has the power to make decisions and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision-making power remains with the monarch. Unlike in a democracy, kings and queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions they take. Democratic governments. India is a democracy. This achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. You now know that the main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. So, in a sense of democracy is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Democratic governments in our times are usually referred to as representative democracies. In representative democracies, people do not participate directly but instead choose their representatives through an election process. These representatives meet and make decisions for the entire population. These days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what is known as universal adult franchise. This means that all adults in the country are allowed to vote. Nowhere in the world have governments willingly shared power. All over Europe and the USA, women and the poor have had to fight for participation in government. Women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War. This movement is called the women's suffrage movement, as the term suffrage usually means right to vote. During the war, many women were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered men's work. Many women began organizing and managing different kinds of works. When people saw this, they began to wonder why they had created so many unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. So, women began to be seen as being equally capable of making decisions. The suffragettes demanded the right to vote for all women, and to get their demands heard, they chained themselves to railings in public places. Many suffragettes were imprisoned and went on hunger strikes, and they had to be fed by force. American women got the right to vote in 1920, while women in the UK got to vote on the same terms as men some years later in 1928. But it was not always like this. Can you believe that there was a time when governments did not allow women and the poor to participate in elections? In their earliest forms, governments allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. This meant that women, the poor, the propertyless, and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. The country was governed by the rules and regulations that these few men made. In India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. Several people, including Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is known as universal adult franchise. Writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji said, "I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man." तो ये है इस चैप्टर का एक्सरसाइज, और ये बहुत छोटा सा चैप्टर था। तो अभी हम चैप्टर 4 शुरू करेंगे, जो कि है की एलिमेंट्स ऑफ डेमोक्रेटिक गवर्नमेंट। तो शुरू करते हैं। In this chapter, you will read about some of the key elements that influences the working of a democratic government. This includes people's participation, the resolution of conflict, and equality and justice. South Africa is a country that has people of several races. There are black people who belong to South Africa, whites who came there to settle, and Indians who came as laborers and traders. Maya Naidu, an 11-year-old South African girl living in the town of Johannesburg, was helping her mother clear off her old boxes. She found a scrapbook full of pictures and newspaper articles. There were many pictures of a young schoolboy of around 15 years of age. When she asked her mother who the boy was, she was told that he was called Hector Peterson. He had been shot by the police. Maya was shocked. "Why?" she asked. Her mother explained that South Africa was earlier governed by apartheid laws. Apartheid means separation on the basis of race. South African people were divided into white, black, Indian, and colored races. According to the law, these races were not allowed to mingle with each other, to live near each other, or even to use common facilities. Maya could not believe her ears. Maya's mother sounded angry when she spoke about life under apartheid. She told Maya that in those days, hospitals were separate and so were ambulances, An ambulance meant for white people would always be well equipped, while one meant for black people was not. There were separate trains and buses. Even the bus stops were different for black and white people. Non-whites were not allowed to vote. The best land in the country was reserved for the white people, and non-whites had to live on the worst available land. Thus, blacks and colored people were not considered to be equal to whites. One black township was the southwestern township, Soweto. Hector Peterson lived here, and he and his classmates joined the protest against learning the Afrikaans language in school. This was the language that the whites spoke. Hector and other school students were being forced to learn this language, but they wanted to learn their own language, Zulu. The South African police beat up the protesters mercilessly and shot at the crowd. One of their bullets killed Hector. This was on 16 June 1976. The African National Congress, a group of people who led the struggle against apartheid, and their most well-known leader, Nelson Mandela, fought the apartheid system for several years. Finally, they succeeded, and in 1994, South Africa became a democratic country in which people of all races were considered equal. Let us now try to understand what a democratic government means to all of us. Participation. Why do we have regular elections? You have already read in previous chapter that people make the decisions in a democracy. Through voting in elections, people elect leaders to represent them. These representatives take decisions on behalf of the people. In doing so, it is assumed that they will keep in mind the voices and interests of the people. All governments are elected for fixed periods. In India, this period is 5 years. Once elected, governments can stay in power only for that period. If they want to continue to be in power, then they have to be re-elected by the people. This is a moment when people can sense their power in a democracy. In this way, the power of the government gets limited by regular elections. Other ways of participating. Elections are usually held once in 5 years. Besides voting, there are other ways of participating in the process of government. People participate by taking an interest in the working of the government and by criticizing it when required. In August 2005, when a particular government increased the money people had to pay for electricity, people expressed their disapproval very sharply. They took out rallies and also organized a signature campaign. The government tried to explain and defend its decision, but finally listened to the people's opinion and withdrew the increase. The government had to change its decision because it is responsible to the people. There are many ways in which people express their views and make comments, understand what actions they should take. These include dharnas, rallies, strikes, signature campaigns, etc. Things that are unfair and unjust are also brought forward. Newspapers, magazines, and TV also play a role in discussing government issues and responsibilities. While it is true that a democracy allows people to participate, it is also true that not all sections of people are actually able to do so. Another way for people to participate is by organizing themselves into social movements that seek to challenge the government and its functioning. Members of the minority community, Dalits, Adivasis, women, and others are often able to participate in this manner. If a country's people are alert and interested in how the country is run, the democratic character of the government of that country will be stronger. So the next time we see a rally winding through the streets of our cities and towns or villages, we should pause to find out what the rally is about, who is participating in it, and what they are protesting about. This will help to give us a sense of how our government works. Need to resolve conflict. In Maya's story, you read about how conflicts can often lead to violence and death because one group decides that it is alright to use force to prevent the other group from protesting. Conflicts occur when people of different cultures, religions, regions, or economic backgrounds do not get along with each other, or when some among them feel they are being discriminated against. People may use violent means to settle their differences. This leads to fear and tension among others living in an area. The government is responsible for helping to resolve conflicts. Let's read about some of the conflicts in our society and the role of the government in resolving them. The Indian Constitution lays down the basic rules or laws that have to be followed by everyone. These laws are for both the government and the people. Conflicts and differences have to be resolved according to these laws. We'll read more about this in later classes. Religious processions and celebrations can sometimes lead to conflicts. For example, the route of a procession takes may lead to a conflict. The government, particularly the police, play an important role in getting representatives of concerned communities to meet and try and arrive at a solution. At times, there is fear that violence may erupt, with people throwing stones or trying to disrupt the procession. The police is responsible for ensuring that violence does not take place. Rivers too can become a source of conflict between states. A river may begin in one state, flow through another, and end in a third. The sharing of a river water between different states that the river goes through is becoming an issue of conflict. For example, you may have heard about the Kaveri water dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. The water stored in Krishnarajasagara Dam in Karnataka is used for irrigating a number of districts and for meeting the needs of the city of Bengaluru. The water stored in Mettur Dam in Tamil Nadu is used for crops grown in the delta region of the state. A conflict arises because both dams are on the same river. The downstream dam in Tamil Nadu can only be filled up if water is released from the upstream one located in Karnataka. Therefore, both states can't get as much water as they need for people in their states. This leads to conflict. The central government has to step in and see that a fair distribution is worked out for both states. Equality and justice. One of the key ideas of a democratic government is its commitment to equality and justice. Equality and justice are inseparable. The earlier practice of untouchability is now banned by law. This group of people were denied education, transport, or medical facilities, and even the chance to offer prayers. Dr. Ambedkar, whom you have read about earlier in this book, and many others like him, realized that such practices must not continue and that justice can only be achieved when people are treated equally. The government also recognizes this and makes special provisions for groups within society that are unequal. For instance, in our society there is a general tendency to value and care for the boy child more than the girl child. This means that society does not value the girl and boy child equally, and this is unjust. In this context, the government steps in to promote justice by providing special provisions that can enable girls to overcome the injustice that they are subjected to. Thus, it is possible that fees for girls might be waived or lowered in government schools or colleges. How do you think lowering the school fees would help girls attend school? Can you think of any experience from your life in which you have helped someone out of a situation which you thought was unfair? Did everyone else see it the same way? What did you have to say to convince others that what you did was fair? ये है इस चैप्टर का क्वेश्चंस। तो इसी के साथ हमारा चैप्टर नंबर 4 भी कंप्लीट होता है। तो आज के वीडियो में हमने चैप्टर 3 और 4 कंप्लीट कर लिया है। तो आप अगर चैनल पर नए हैं तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए और नोटिफिकेशन आइकन पर क्लिक कर दीजिए। और अगर आपको वीडियो अच्छा लगे तो लाइक कर दीजिए और अपने दोस्तों के साथ शेयर कीजिए ताकि उन्हें भी हेल्प हो सके। तो हमारा ये वीडियो यहीं तक था। थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग। हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो अब हम देखने वाले हैं एनसीईआरटी पॉलिटी क्लास 6, जिसमें आज हम देखेंगे यूनिट 3 जो कि है एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एंड लोकल गवर्नमेंट एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन। तो इसमें आज हम देखेंगे चैप्टर 5 जो कि है पंचायती राज। तो शुरू करते हैं हमारा आज का चैप्टर। What happens after people elect their representatives? How are decisions made? Let's look at how this takes place in rural areas. Here we will look at the Gram Sabha, which is a meeting where people directly participate and seek answers from their elected representatives. It's a special day today. Everyone's rushing to get to the Gram Sabha. Do you know why? Because the Gram Sabha is holding its first meeting after the election of the new Gram Panchayat. The Gram Sabha is a meeting of all adults who live in the area covered by a panchayat. This could be only one village or a few villages. In some states, as in example above, a village meeting is held for each village. Anyone who is 18 years old or more and who has the right to vote is a member of the Gram Sabha. The people of Hardas village are keen to find out what the new panchayat leaders have planned for the village. Gram Sabha. The Gram Sabha meeting begins with the Panchayat President, who is also called the Sarpanch, and the members of the Panchayat, the Panch, presenting a plan on repairing the road that connects the village to the main highway. After this, the discussion moves to the subject of water and water shortages. Every village panchayat is divided into wards, that means smaller areas. Each ward elects a representative who is known as the ward member or panch. All the members of the Gram Sabha also elect a sarpanch who is the panchayat president. The ward panch and the sarpanch form the Gram Panchayat. The Gram Panchayat is elected for 5 years. The Gram Panchayat has a secretary who is also the secretary of the Gram Sabha. This person is not an elected person but is appointed by the government. The secretary is responsible for calling the meeting of the Gram Sabha and Gram Panchayat and keeping a record of the proceedings. A villager called Tijia begins the meeting by saying, "The water problem in Hardas has become very acute. The hand pump water has gone well below the point up to which the ground has been drilled. We hardly get any water in the taps. Women have to go to the Suru river, which is 3 kilometers away, to get water." One of the members suggests piping water from the Suru and making an overhead tank in the village to increase the supply. But the others think that this will be expensive. It's better they feel to depend the hand pumps and clean the wells for this season. Tijia says this is not enough. We need to do something more permanent as groundwater levels seem to be going down every year. We are using more water than is seeping into the ground. Another member, Anwar, then tells everyone that he has seen ways of conserving water and recharging or refilling it in a village in Maharashtra, where he had once gone to visit his brother. It was called watershed development, and he had heard that the government gave money for this work. In his brother's village, people had planted trees, constructed check dams and tanks. Everyone thought this was an interesting idea, and the Gram Panchayat was asked to find out about it in detail. The next item on the agenda for the Gram Sabha is the finalization of the list of people below the poverty line (BPL), which had to be approved by the Gram Sabha. As soon as the list is read out, people begin to whisper. Natwar has just bought a color TV and his son has sent him a new motorcycle. How can he be below the poverty line? Suraj Mal mutters to the person sitting next to him. Saroj says to Sukhi Bai, how did Biju's name get on to the list? He has so much land. This list should have only poor people, and Om Prakash is a landless laborer who can barely make ends meet, yet his name is not on the list. You know that both Natwar and Biju are friends of Amit Chand, who can counter Amit Chand's power. Sukhibai says, Amit Chand was the earlier Jamindar, landowner of the village, and still has control over a lot of land. But we should get Om Prakash's name put in. The Sarpanch, Panchayat President, notices people whispering and asks if anyone has anything to say. Saroj tries to provoke Suraj Mal to ask about Natwar and Birju, but he keeps quiet. Amit Chand is sitting in the Gram Sabha keeping an eye on everyone. Then Saroj gets up and says that Om Prakash's name should be in the BPL list. Others agree that he and his family are very poor. The Sarpanch asks how his name had been missed out. The teacher who did the survey of BPL families says, Om Prakash's house was locked when I went there. He may have gone somewhere to look for work. The Sarpanch gives instruction that Om Prakash's family income be looked at, and if it is less than what has been decided by the government, his name should be included in the list. The Gram Sabha is a key factor in making the Gram Panchayat play its role and be responsible. It is the place where all plans for the work of the Gram Panchayat are placed before the people. The Gram Sabha prevents the Panchayat from doing wrong things like misusing money or favoring certain people. It plays an important role in keeping an eye on the elected representatives and is in making them responsible to the persons who elected them. The Gram Panchayat. The Gram Panchayat meets regularly, and one of its main tasks is to implement development programs for all villages that come under it. As you have seen, the work of the Gram Panchayat has to be approved by the Gram Sabha. In some states, Gram Sabhas form committees like construction and development committees. These committees include some members of the Gram Sabha and some from the Gram Panchayat who work together to carry out specific tasks. The work of a Gram Panchayat includes the construction and maintenance of water sources, roads, drainage, school buildings, and other common property resources, levying and collecting local taxes, executing government schemes related to generating employment in the village, sources of fund for the Panchayat, collection of taxes on houses, marketplace, etc., government scheme funds received through various departments of the government through the Janpad and Jilla Panchayats, donations for community works, etc. Let's see what the Haddas Gram Panchayat was able to do. Do you remember the options that were suggested to solve the water problem in the Gram Sabha of Haddas village? When the Haddas Gram Panchayat held a meeting, this point was brought up again by some of the members, Panch. This meeting was attended by the Sarpanch, ward members, Panch, and the secretary. Gram Panchayat members first discussed the suggestion to deepen 2 hand pumps and clean 1 well so that the village would not go without water. The Sarpanch or Panchayat President suggested that since the Panchayat had received some money for maintenance of hand pumps, this could be used for completing this work. The members agreed and the secretary recorded the decision. The members then went on to discuss the options for a long-term solution. They were sure that the Gram Sabha members would ask questions at the next meeting. Some punts asked whether the watershed program would make a substantial difference to the water level. A lot of discussion followed. In the end, it was decided that the Gram Panchayat would approach the block development officer and get more information on the scheme. 3 levels of panchayats. After reading about what happened in the Gram Sabha and the Gram Panchayat in Hadas village, you can understand that the Panchayati Raj system is a process through which people participate in their own government. In rural areas, the Gram Panchayat is the first tier of level of democratic government. The Panch and the Gram Panchayat are answerable to the Gram Sabha because it is the members of the Gram Sabha who elected them. This idea of people's participation in the Panchayati Raj system extends to 2 other levels. One is the block level, which is called the Janpad Panchayat or Panchayat Samiti. The Panchayat Samiti has many Gram Panchayats under it. Above the Panchayat Samiti is the District Panchayat or the Jilla Parishad. The Jilla Parishad actually makes developmental plans at the district level. With the help of Panchayat Samitis, it also regulates the money distribution among all the Gram Panchayats. Within the guidelines given in the constitution, each state in the country has its own laws with regard to panchayats. The idea is to provide more and more space for people to participate and raise their voices. तो ये है इस चैप्टर का क्वेश्चंस. इसी के साथ हमारा ये चैप्टर कंप्लीट होता है. तो ये एक छोटा सा चैप्टर था. तो अभी हम नेक्स्ट चैप्टर स्टार्ट करेंगे जो कि है चैप्टर 6 रूरल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. तो शुरू करते हैं. There are more than 6 lakh villages in India. Taking care of their needs for water, electricity, road connections is not a small task. In addition to this, land records have to be maintained and conflicts too need to be dealt with. A large machinery is in place to deal with all this. In this chapter, we will look at the work of 2 rural administrative officers in some detail. A quarrel in the village. Mohan is a farmer. His family owns a small agricultural field, which they have been farming for many years. Next to his fields is Raghu's land, which is separated from his by a small boundary called a bandh. One morning, Mohan noticed that Raghu has shifted the bandh by a few feet. By doing so, he had managed to take over some of Mohan's land and increase the size of his own field. Mohan was angry but also a little frightened. Raghu's family owned many fields, and besides, his uncle was also the sarpanch of the village. But even so, he plucked up courage and went to Raghu's house. A heated argument followed. Raghu refused to accept that he had moved the bandh. He called one of his helpers and they began shouting at Mohan and beating him up. The neighbors heard the commotion and rushed to the spot where Mohan was being beaten up. They took him away. He was badly hurt on his head and hand. He was given first aid by one of his neighbors. His friend, who also ran the village post office, suggested that they go to the local police station and file a report. Others were doubtful if this was a good idea because they felt they would waste a lot of money and nothing would come out of it. Some people said that Raghu's family would have already contacted the police station. After much discussion, it was decided that Mohan would go to the police station along with some of the neighbors who had seen the incident. Area of the police station. On the way to the police station, one of the neighbors asked, "Why don't we spend some more money and go to the main police station in the town?" "It is not a question of money. We can register the case only in this police station because our village comes in its area of work," explained Mohan. "Every police station has an area that comes under its control. All persons in that area can report cases or inform the police about any theft, accident, injury, fight, etc. It is the responsibility of the police of their station to investigate and take action on the cases within its area. The work at the police station. When they reached the police station, Mohan went to the person in charge, station house officer or SHO, and told him what had happened. He also said that he wanted to give the complaint in writing. The SHO rudely brushed him aside, saying that he could not be bothered to waste his time writing down minor complaints and then investigating them. Mohan showed him his injuries, but the SHO did not believe him. Mohan was puzzled and did not know what to do. He was not sure why his complaint was not being recorded. He went and called his neighbors into the office. They argued strongly that Mohan had been beaten up in front of them, and had they not rescued him, he would have been injured very seriously. They insisted that the case be registered. Finally, the officer agreed. He asked Mohan to write down his complaint and also told the people that he would send a constable the next day to investigate the incident. Maintenance of land records. You saw that Mohan and Raghu were arguing heatedly whether the common boundary of their field had been shifted. Isn't there a way by which they could have settled this dispute in a peaceful manner? Are there records that show who owns what land in the village? Let's find out how this is done. Measuring land and keeping land records is the main work of the Patwari. The Patwari is known by different names in different states. In some villages, such officers are called Lekpal, in others Kanungo or Karmchari or village officers, etc. We will refer to these officers as Patwari. Each Patwari is responsible for a group of villages. The Patwari maintains and updates the records of the village. The map and the corresponding details from the register on the next page are a small part of the records kept by the Patwari. The Patwari usually has ways of measuring agricultural fields. In some places, a long chain is used. In the above instance, the Patwaris would have measured both Mohan's and Raghu's fields and compared them with the measurements on the map. If they did not match, then it would be clear that the boundary of the fields has been changed. The Patwari is also responsible for organizing the collection of land revenue from the farmers and providing information to the government about the crops grown in this area. This is done from the records that are kept, and this is why it is important for the Patwari to regularly update this. Farmers may change the crops grown on their fields, or someone may dig a well somewhere. And keeping track of all this is the work of the revenue department of the government. Senior people in this department supervise the Patwari's work. All states in India are divided into districts. For managing matters related to land, these districts are further subdivided. These subdivisions of a district are known by different names such as Tehsil, Taluka, etc. At the head is the district collector, and under her are the revenue officers, also known as Tehsildars. They have to hear disputes. They also supervise the work of the Patwaris and ensure that records are properly kept. And land revenue is collected. They make sure that the farmers can easily obtain a copy of the record, students can obtain their caste certificates, etc. The Tehsildar's office is where land disputes are also heard. Farmers often require a copy of the land's record together with a map as shown in the previous illustration. They have a right to this information. They may have to pay a small fee for this. However, this information is not easily made available and farmers sometimes have to face many problems to get it. In some states, records are now being computerized and also kept at the panchayat office so that they are more easily available and regularly updated. When do you think farmer may require a copy of this record? Study the following situation and identify the cases in which these records would be necessary and why. A farmer wants to buy a plot of land from another. A farmer wants to sell her produce to another. A farmer wants a loan from the bank to dig a well in her land. A farmer wants to purchase fertilizers for his field. A farmer wants to divide his property among his children. A daughter's wish. Father inherited our house from his father, and everyone says he will leave it to brother. But what about me and my mother? To expect a share in my father's home is not very womanly, I am told. But I really want a place of my own, not dowry of silk and gold. A new law, Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005. Often when we think of farmers who own land, we think of men. Women are seen as people who work on the fields, but not as people who own agricultural land. Till recently, in some states, Hindu women did not get a share in the family's agricultural land. After the death of the father, his property was divided equally only among his sons. Recently, the law was changed. In the new law, sons, daughters, and their mothers can get an equal share in the land. The same law will apply to all states and union territories of the country. This law will benefit a large number of women. For example, Sudha is the eldest daughter of an agricultural family. She is married and lives in a neighboring village. After her father's death, Sudha often comes to help her mother with the farming work. Her mother has asked the Patwari to transfer the land and enter her name along with the names of all the children in his record. Sudha's mother confidently organizes the farming with the help of the youngest brother and sister. Similarly, Sudha also lives with the assurance that if she ever has a problem, she can always depend upon her share of the land. Other public services, a survey. This chapter has looked at some of the administrative work of the government, especially for rural areas. The first example related to maintaining law and order and the second to maintaining land records. In the first case, we examined the role of the police and in the second that of the Patwari. This work is supervised by other people in the department such as the Tehsildar or the Superintendent of Police. We have also seen how people use these services and some of the problems that they face. These services have to be used and made to function according to the laws that have been framed for them. You have probably seen many other public services and facilities provided by various departments of the government. Do the following exercise for your village or by visiting a nearby village or looking at your own area. List the public services in the village area such as the milk society, the fair price shop, the bank, the police station, the agricultural society for seeds and fertilizer, the post office or sub-post office, the Anganwadi, creche, government schools, health center or government hospital, etc. Collect information on 3 public services and discuss with your teacher how improvements can be made in their functioning. One example has been worked out. तो ये है इस चैप्टर का एक्सरसाइज. तो उसके बाद हम शुरू करेंगे चैप्टर 7 जो कि है अर्बन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. तो शुरू करते हैं. A city is much bigger than a village and more spread out. A city has crowded markets, many buses and cars, water and electricity facilities, traffic control and hospitals. Have you ever wondered who is responsible for running all this? Do you know how decisions are made, how the planning is done? Who are the people who do all the work? Read this chapter and find some answers. One lazy Sunday afternoon, Mala and her friends Shankar, Jahangir, and Rehana were playing a game of cricket in the street. Shankar had bowled a good over, and although he nearly managed to get Rehana out, she was still batting. Frustrated, he bowled a short ball and hoped she would hit it for an easy catch. Instead, Rehana hit the ball so hard and so high that the street light broke. Rehana screamed, "Oh no, look what I have done," Shankar said. "Yes, we forgot to make a rule that if you break the street light, you are automatically out." But Mala, Jahangir and Rehana were more worried about what had happened, and they told Shankar he would better stop thinking about the wicket. Last week they had broken Nirmala Mos's window and had spent their pocket money to have it replaced. Would they have to dish out money again from their pockets? But who would they pay this to? To whom did the lights on the streets belong? Who changed them? Rehana's house was the closest, and they ran and told her mother what had happened. Rehana's mother said, "I don't really know these things in great detail, but I do know that it is the municipal corporation of the city that takes care of replacing lights. The best person to ask would be Yasmin Khala. She just retired from the municipal corporation. Go and ask her, and Rehana come back home soon." Yasmin Khala lived in same lane, and she and Rehana's mother were good friends. The children ran to Khala's house, and when she opened the door, they began to tell her what had happened all at once. When they asked about the street light, Yasmin Khala laughed and said, "There is no one person that you can pay the money to. There is a big organization called the Municipal Corporation that takes care of street lights, garbage collection, water supply, keeping the streets and the market clean. I have heard about the municipal corporation. They have put up signs around the city to inform about malaria," said Mala. "Yes, you are quite right. The municipal corporation is also responsible for ensuring that diseases do not break out in the city. It also runs schools, hospitals, and dispensaries, and makes gardens and maintains them," said Yasmin Khala. Then she added, "Our city, Pune, is a big city, and so here it is called a municipal corporation. In smaller towns, it is called a municipal council. The ward councillor and administrative staff." "Yasmin Khala, I am curious. Who decide where a park should go? Did you have to make interesting decisions like this when you worked in the municipal corporation?" asked Rehana. "No, Rehana, I was working in the accounts office of the corporation, so I just worked on pay slips. Cities are usually quite large, so the municipal corporation has to make a lot of decisions as well as do a lot of work to keep the city clean. The decisions like where a park or a new hospital should go are usually made by the ward councillors. The city is divided into different wards, and ward councillors get elected. The complicated decisions that affect the entire city are taken by a group of councillors who form committees to decide and debate issues. For example, if bus stands need to be improved, or a crowded marketplace needs to have its garbage cleared more regularly, or there is a nala or drain that cuts through the city that needs cleaning, etc. It is these committees for water, garbage collection, street lighting, etc. that decide on the work to be done. When the problems are within a ward, then the people who live in the ward can contact their councillors. For example, if there are dangerous electrical wires hanging down, then the local councillor can help them get in touch with the electricity authority. While the councillors' committees and the councillors decide on issues, the commissioner and the administrative staff implement these. The commissioner and the administrative staff are appointed. Councillors are elected. "So how are these decisions made?" asked Rehana, who never gave up on her train of thought. "Well, all of the ward councillors meet, and they make a budget, and the money is spent according to this. The ward councillors try and ensure that the particular demands of their wards are placed before the entire council. These decisions are then implemented by the administrative staff," said Yasmin Khala, enjoying the questions. That the children asked. No adults asked her about her job, and the children's question provided her an opportunity to relive some of her experiences. How does the municipal corporation get its money? Providing and running so many services require a lot of money. The municipal corporation collects this in different ways. A tax is a sum of money that people pay to the government for the services the government provides. People who own homes have to pay a property tax as well as tax for water and other services. The larger the house, the more the tax. Property taxes, however, form only 25 to 30% of the money that a municipal corporation earns. There are also taxes for education and other amenities. If you own a hotel or shop, then you have to pay tax for this as well. Also, the next time you go to see a movie, look carefully at your ticket because you pay a tax for this as well. Thus, while rich people account for property taxes, a much wider population pays more general taxes. But the city is so large, it must take a lot of people to look after it. Does the municipal corporation have a lot of workers? Asked Shankar curiously. He had by now luckily forgotten about the cricket match and his incomplete over. Yes, the work in the city is divided into different departments. So there is the water department, the garbage collection department, a department to look after gardens, another to look after roads. I worked on accounts in the sanitation department, said Yasmin Khala, and then went on to offer the children some kebabs to eat. Jahangir ate his kebabs at top speed, and as he wolfed them down, he asked loudly from the kitchen, Yasmin Khala, where does the garbage that the municipal corporation collects go to? The others were still eating when Yasmin Khala began to answer. This question has an interesting answer. As you know, you can usually find garbage lying all over the street. Earlier, even our neighborhood used to have garbage lying all over, and if this remains uncollected, it attracts dogs, rats, and flies. Also, people get ill from the smell. At one point, things became so bad that children even stopped playing cricket in the street because their parents were afraid that they would get sick from staying on the streets too long. A communal protest, Yasmin Khala continued. The women were very unhappy about the situation and even came to me for advice. I said I could try and speak with some officers in the department, but I was not sure how long it would take. Then it was Gangabai who said that it is the ward councillor who we should go to and protest, since we are the ones who elected him. She gathered a small group of women and went to his house. They began shouting slogans in front of his house, and he came out and asked them what was wrong. What has changed since Khala retired? What Yasmin Khala did not mention to the children was that in recent time, in order to save money, the commissioners of several municipalities across the country had hired private contractors to collect and process garbage. This is called subcontracting. This means that the work that was earlier being done by government workers is now being done by a private company. These contract workers get paid less and their jobs are temporary. Collecting garbage is also quite a dangerous job, and often these contract workers do not have any access to safety measures and are not taken care of if they are injured while working. Gangabai described the situation in the locality to him. He promised to go with them the next day to meet the commissioner. He asked the Gangabai to get a petition signed by all of the adults in the locality saying that garbage was not being collected. He suggested that taking the local sanitation engineer with them the next day might be a good idea. The sanitation engineer could also speak with the commissioner and tell him how bad the situation was. That evening, children ran from house to house, making sure that as many families as possible signed the petition. The next morning, a large group of women and the ward councillor and the sanitation engineer went to the municipal corporation office. The commissioner met with this large group and began giving excuses, saying that the corporation did not have enough trucks. But Gangabhai smartly replied, "But you seem to have enough trucks to collect garbage from the rich localities." That must have left him lost for words, quipped Jahangir. Yes, he said that he would take care of it immediately, and Gangabai threatened that if it was not done in 2 days, a larger group of women would protest in front of the corporation, said Yasmin Khala. So, did the streets get cleaned? Asked Rahana, who never let things remain unfinished. Well, not within 2 days, and then after another larger and more noisy protest, the sanitation service in this locality became more regular. Wow, this sounds just like a Bollywood film with a happy ending, said Mala, who already began imagining herself in the lead role of Gangabai. The children enjoyed hearing Gangabai's story immensely. They had sensed that Gangabai was much loved and respected, and now they understood why. They got up and thanked Khala for answering their questions, and then, before they left, Rehana said, "Oh, I have one last question, Khala. The two dustbins that we have at home now, are they also Gangabai's idea?" Khala began laughing. "No, not really. The municipal corporation was the one who suggested that we do this to help keep our streets clean. When we sort our own garbage, it reduces their work." The children thanked Khala and walked back down the street together. It had become quite late and they needed to get back home. For some reason, the street seemed darker than usual. They looked up and then looked at each other smiling and ran right back to Khala's house. The city of Surat had a plague scare in 1994. Surat was one of the dirtiest cities in India. Houses, hotels, and restaurants would dump their garbage into the nearest drain or street, which made it very difficult for sweepers to collect and transfer the garbage into selected dumps. In addition to this, the municipal corporation did not collect the garbage as often as it should have, and this led to the situation getting worse. Plague spread through the air, and people who have the disease have to be isolated. In Surat, several people lost their lives, and over 300,000 deserted the city. The scare of the plague ensured that the municipal corporation completely cleaned up the city. Surat continues to remain one of the cleanest cities in India. Do you know when and how often garbage gets collected in your neighborhood? Do you think it is the same for all neighborhoods of the city? Why not discuss? तो ये है इस चैप्टर का एक्सरसाइज. इसी के साथ हमारा ये चैप्टर कंप्लीट होता है. तो अगर आप चैनल पर नए हैं तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए और नोटिफिकेशन आइकन पर क्लिक कर दीजिए ताकि आपको सारे वीडियोस के अपडेट्स मिल सके. साथ ही अगर आपको वीडियो अच्छा लगे तो लाइक कर दीजिए और अपने दोस्तों के साथ शेयर कीजिए ताकि उन्हें भी हेल्प हो सके. तो हमारा ये वीडियो यहीं तक था. थैंक यू. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग. हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल. तो अब हम देखने वाले हैं एनसीईआरटी के पॉलिटी क्लास 6, जिसमें आज हम शुरू करेंगे यूनिट 4 जो कि है लाइवलीहुड. तो इसमें हम पहले देखेंगे चैप्टर 8 जो कि है रूरल लाइवलीहुड. तो शुरू करते हैं हमारा चैप्टर. In the first chapter, we looked at many kinds of diversity in our lives. We also explored how living in different regions has an effect on the work people do, the kinds of plants, trees, crops, or things that become important to them. In this chapter, we will look at the different ways in which people earn their living in villages. And here too, as in the first two chapters, we will examine whether people have equal opportunities to earn a living. We will look at the similarities in their life situations and the problems that they face. Kalpattu village. Kalpattu is a village that's close to the sea coast in Tamil Nadu. People here do many kinds of work. As in other villages, here too there is non-farm works such as making baskets, utensils, pots, bricks, bullock carts, etc. There are people who provide services such as blacksmiths, nurses, teachers, washermen, weavers, barbers, cycle repair mechanics, and so on. There are also some shopkeepers and traders. In the main street, which looks like a bazaar, you will find a variety of small shops such as tea shops, grocery shops, barber shops, a cloth shop, a tailor, and 2 fertilizers and seed shops. There are 4 tea shops which sell tiffins such as idli, dosa, and uppam in the morning, and snacks like vada, bonda, and Mysore pak in the evening. Near the tea shops in a corner lives a blacksmith family whose home serves as their workshop. Next to their home is a cycle hire and repair shop. Two families earn a living by washing clothes. There are some people who go to nearby town to work as construction workers and lorry drivers. The village is surrounded by low hills. Paddy is the main crop that is grown in irrigated lands. Most of the families earn a living through agriculture. There are some coconut groves around. Cotton, sugarcane, and plantain are also grown, and there are mango orchards. Let us now meet some people who work in the fields in Kalpattu and see what we can learn about farming from them. Tulasi. All of us here work on Ramlingan's land. He has 20 acres of paddy fields in Kalpattu. Even before I was married, I used to work on paddy fields in my parental village. I work from 8:30 in the morning till 4:30 in the evening, and Karuthamma, Ramalingam's wife, supervises us. This is one of the few times in the year that I find regular work. Now I am transplanting the paddy. When the plants have grown a bit, Ramalingam will call us again for weeding and then finally once again for the harvesting. When I was young, I could do this work with no difficulty. But now, as I grow older, I find bending for long hours with my feet in water very painful. Ramalingam pays rupees 40 per day. This is a little less than what laborers get in my home village. But I come here because I can depend on him to call me whenever there is work. Unlike others, he does not go looking for cheaper labor from other villages. My husband Raman is also a laborer. We don't own any land. During this time of the year, he sprays pesticides. When there is no work on the farm, he finds work outside, either loading sand from the river or stone from the quarry nearby. This is sent by truck to be used in nearby towns to make houses. Apart from working on the land, I do all the tasks at home. I cook food for my family, clean the house, and wash clothes. I go with other women to the nearby forest to collect firewood. About 1 kilometer away, we have a village borewell from where I fetch water. My husband helps in getting materials such as groceries for the house. Our school-going daughters are the joy of our lives. Last year, one of them fell ill and had to be taken to the hospital in town. We had to sell our cow to pay back the money we borrowed from Ramalingam for her treatment. As you saw in Tulasi's story, poor families in rural areas often spend a lot of time every day collecting firewood, getting water, and grazing their cattle. Even though they do not earn any money from these activities, they have to do them for the household. The family needs to spend time doing this as they are not able to survive on the little money they earn. Nearly two-fifths of all rural families are agricultural laborers in our country. There are some who have small plots of land while others like Tulsi are landless. Not being able to earn money throughout the year forces people in many rural areas to travel long distances in search of work. This travel or migration takes place during particular seasons. Sekhar, we have to carry this paddy to our house. My family has just finished harvesting our field. We don't own much land, only 2 acres. We manage to do all the work on our own. At times, especially during the harvest, I take the help of other small farmers and in turn help them harvest their field. The trader gave me seeds and fertilizers as a loan. To pay back this loan, I have to sell my paddy to him at a somewhat lower price than what I would get in the market. He has sent his agent to remind farmers who have taken loans that they will sell the paddy only to him. I will probably get 60 bags of paddy from my field. Some of these I will sell to settle the loan. The rest will be used in my home. But whatever I have will last only 8 months. So I need to earn some money. I work in Ramalingam's rice mill. Here I help him collect paddy from other farmers in the neighboring villages. We also have a hybrid cow whose milk we sell in the local milk cooperative. This way we get a little extra money for our everyday needs. On being in depth, as you have read above, very often farmers like Sekhar need to borrow money to purchase basic things like seeds, fertilizers and pesticides. Often they borrow this money from money lenders. If the seeds are not of good quality or pests attack their crop, there can be a major crop failure. The crops can also be ruined in the monsoon if the monsoon does not bring enough rain. When this happens, farmers sometimes are unable to pay back their loans, and for the family to survive, they may even have to borrow more money. Soon the loan becomes so large that no matter what they earn, they are unable to repay. This is when we can say they are caught in debt. In recent years, this has become a major cause of distress among farmers. In some areas, this has also resulted in many farmers committing suicide. Ramalingam and Karuthama. In addition to land, Ramalingam's family owns a rice mill and a shop selling seeds, pesticides, etc. For the rice mill, they used some of their own money and also borrowed from the government bank. They buy paddy from within the village and from surrounding villages. The rice that is produced in the mill is sold to traders in nearby towns. This gives them a substantial income. Terrace farming in Nagaland. This is a village called Chizami, which is in the Phek district in Nagaland. The people of this village belong to the Chekesang community. They do terrace cultivation. This means that the land on a hill slope is made into flat plots and carved out into steps. The sides of each plot are raised in order to retain water. This allows water to stand in the field, which is best for rice cultivation. The people of Chizami have their own individual fields, but they also work collectively in each other's fields. They form groups of 6 or 8 and take an entire mountainside to clean the weeds on it. Each group is together once their work for the day is over. This goes on for several days until the work is completed. Agricultural laborers and farmers in India. In Kalpattu village, there are agricultural laborers like Tulsi and many small farmers like Sekhar, and a few big farmers like Ramalinga. In India, nearly 2 out of every 5 rural families are agricultural laborer families. All of them depend on the work they do on other people's fields to earn a living. Many of them are landless and others may own very small plots of land. In the case of small farmers like Sekhar, their land is barely enough to meet their needs. In India, 80% of farmers belong to this group. Only 20% of India's farmers are like Ramalingam. These large farmers cultivate most of the land in the villages. A large part of their produce is sold in the market. Many of them have started other businesses such as shops, money lending, trading, small factories, etc. We have looked at farming in Kalpattu. Apart from farming, many people in rural areas depend upon collection from the forest, animal husbandry, dairy produce, fishing, etc. For example, in some villages in central India, both farming and collection from the forest are important sources of livelihood. Collecting mohua, tendu, leaves, honey to be sold to traders is an important source of additional income. Similarly, selling milk to the village cooperative society or taking milk to the nearby town may be the main source of livelihood for some families. In the coastal areas, we find fishing villages. Let us find out more about the lives of a fishing family by reading about Aruna and Parivelan who live in Pudupet, a village close to Kalpattu. Aruna and Parivallan. Not very far from Kalpattu is the village of Puddupet. People here earn their living by fishing. Their houses are close to the sea and one finds rows of catamarans and nets lying around. At about 7 o'clock in the morning, there is a lot of activity on the beach. This is the time when the catamarans return with their catch and women gather to buy and sell fish. My husband Parivalan, my brother and my brother-in-law returned late today. I was very worried. They go to sea together in our catamaran. They said they were caught in a storm. I have kept aside some fish for the family. I will auction the rest. The money I get from the auction will be divided into 4 sets. One is for each person who went fishing and the fourth one is for the equipment. Since we own the catamaran engine and nets, we get that set too. We have taken a loan from a bank and purchased an engine which is fixed on the catamaran. Now they can go far into the sea so that they can get a better catch. The women who buy fish here will carry them in baskets to be sold in nearby villages. Then there are others like traders who buy for the shops in the town. I will only finish this auction by noon. In the evening, my husband and our relatives will untangle and repair our nets. Early tomorrow morning, around 2 a.m., they will set out to sea again. Every year for at least about 4 months during the monsoon, they cannot go to the sea because this is when the fish breed. During these months, we survive by borrowing from the trader. Because of this, later on, we are forced to sell the fish to the trader and cannot do our auction. Those lean months are the most difficult. Last year, we suffered a lot because of the tsunami. Rural livelihoods. People in rural areas earn their living in various ways. Some work on farms while others earn their living on non-farm activities. Working on farms involves operations such as preparing the land, sowing, weeding, and harvesting of crops. We depend on nature for the growth of these crops. Hence, life revolves around certain seasons. People are busy during sowing and harvesting and less so at other times. Rural people in different regions of the country grow different crops. However, we do find similarities in their life situations and in the problems that they face. How people are able to survive or earn will depend upon the land that they cultivate. Many depend on these lands for work as laborers. Most farmers grow crops both for their own requirements and also to sell in the market. Some have to sell to traders from whom they have borrowed money. For their survival, many families need to borrow money for their work or when no work is available. There are some families in rural areas who thrive on large acres of land, business, and other activities. However, most small farmers, agricultural laborers, fishing families, craftspersons in the villages do not find enough work to keep them employed throughout the year. तो ये है इस चैप्टर का एक्सरसाइज. इसी के साथ हमारा ये चैप्टर कंप्लीट हो गया है. तो क्योंकि ये छोटा सा चैप्टर था तो अभी हम शुरू करने वाले हैं चैप्टर 9 जो कि है अर्बन लाइवलीहुड्स. There are more than 5,000 towns and 27 big cities in India. Big cities like Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, etc. have more than 1 million people living and working here. They say that the city never sleeps. Let's visit one and find out about the work people do in the city. Are they employed by someone or are they self-employed? How do they organize themselves? And do they have similar employment and earning opportunities? Working on the street. This is the city where my cousin lives. I have been here only a few times. It is very big. Once when I came here, my cousin took me around. We left the house early in the morning. As we turned the corner onto the main street, we saw that it was already buzzing with activity. The vegetable vendor was busy arranging tomatoes, carrots, and cucumbers in baskets at her stall so that people could see what she had to sell. Next to her stall was a lovely colorful one that sold all kinds of flowers. We bought a red rose and a yellow rose. On the pavement opposite, we saw a person selling newspapers with a small crowd of people around him. Everyone wanted to read the news. Buses whizzed past, and there were auto rickshaws filled with school children. Nearby, under a tree, a cobbler sat taking his tools and materials out of a small tin box. Next to him, the roadside barber had begun his work. He already had a customer who wanted an early morning shave. A little way down the road, a woman was pushing along a cart with all kinds of plastic bottles, boxes, hairpins, clips, etc. in it, while another person on a cycle trolley was carrying vegetables to sell to people in their houses. We came to a place where rickshaws were standing in a row waiting for customers. We decided to take one to the market, which was about 2 kilometers down the road. Bachu Manjhi, a cycle rickshaw puller. I come from a village in Bihar where I worked as a mason. My wife and 3 children live in the village. We don't own land. In the village, I did not get masonry work regularly. The income that I earned was not enough for our family. After I reached the city, I bought an old cycle rickshaw and paid for it in installments. This was many years ago. I come to the bus stop every morning and take the customers wherever they want to go. I work till 8:30 in the evening. I take rides up to 6 kilometers in the surrounding area. Each customer gives me 5 to 10 per trip depending on the distance. When I am ill, I can't do this work, so on those days I don't earn anything. I stay with my friends in a rented room. They work in a nearby factory. I earn between 80 to 100 every day, out of which I spend 50 to 60 on food and rent. The rest I save for my family. I visit my village 2 or 3 times a year to see my family. Though my family survives on the money I send, my wife also earns from agricultural work that she gets once in a while. Like Pachumanji, a large number of people in the city work on the streets. In a survey of Ahmedabad city, it was found that 12% of all the workers in the city were people working on the street. They sometimes sell things or repair them or provide a service. They work on their own. They are not employed by anyone and therefore have to organize their own work. They have to plan how much to purchase as well as where and how to set up their shops. The shops are usually temporary structures, sometimes just some boards or papers spread over discarded boxes, or maybe a canvas sheet hung up on a few poles. They may also use their own carts or simply a plastic sheet spread on the pavement. They can be asked to dismantle their shops at any time by the police. They have no security. There are certain parts of the city where these hawkers are not allowed to enter. Vendors sell things that are often prepared at home by their families, who purchase, clean, sort, and make them ready to sell. For example, those who sell food or snacks on the street prepare most of this at home. There are almost 1 crore street vendors in the country working in urban areas. Street vending was still recently looked upon only as an obstruction to traffic and to people walking. However, with an effort of many organizations, it is now recognized as a general benefit and as a right of people to earn their livelihood. The government is thinking about modifying the law that bans street vendors so that they have a place to work and that there is also a free flow of traffic and people. Hawking zones have been suggested for towns and cities. It has also been suggested that mobile vendors should be allowed to move around freely. Hawkers need to be part of committees that are set up to take these and other decisions relating to them. In the market. When we reached the market, the shops were just beginning to open, but the place was already crowded because of the festival season. There were rows and rows of shops selling sweets, toys, clothes, footwear, utensils, electronic goods, etc. There was a dentist clinic also at one end. My cousin had an appointment with the dentist. We went there first so that we would not miss our turn. We had to wait for a while in a room before she was called inside. The dentist examined her and asked her to come back the following day to get a cavity in her tooth filled. My cousin was scared because she thought the process would be painful and was upset that she had allowed her teeth to go bad. From the dental clinic, she took me to a new garment showroom because I wanted to buy some ready-made clothes. The showroom had 3 floors. Each floor had different types of clothes. We went to the third floor where clothes for girls were kept. Harpreet and Bandhana, business persons. My father and uncle worked in a small shop. During festival times and on Sundays, my mother and I helped them in the shop. I started working there only after I completed my college. Harpreet. We opened this showroom some years ago. I am a dress designer. Our business has changed. These days, people prefer to buy ready-made clothes rather than have them stitched. The trend these days is for ready-made garments. You also need an attractive display for them. Bandhana. For our showroom, we buy things from different places. We buy most of the materials from Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Ludhiana, and Tripura. Some materials also come from Noida and Gurgaon, towns near Delhi. We get some dress items from foreign countries too. There are several things we need to do to run this showroom properly. We advertise in various newspapers, cinema theaters, television, and radio channels. Currently, this building is rented, but soon we plan to buy it. Ever since this market has become the main market for people living in the surrounding apartments, our business has grown. We have been able to buy a car and book a flat in an apartment complex nearby. Like Harpreet and Bandhana, there are many people who own shops in various markets of the city. These shops may be small or large and they sell different things. Most business persons manage their own shops or business. They are not employed by anyone, but they do employ a number of other workers as supervisors and helpers. These are permanent shops that are given a license to do business by the municipal corporation. The municipal corporation also decides on which day of the week the market has to remain closed. For example, the shops in the above market are closed on Wednesdays. This market also has small offices and shops that provide services such as banks, courier services, and others. In the factory workshop area, I wanted to have zari work done on one of my dresses which I needed for a special occasion. My cousin said that she knew Nirmala who works in a garment factory. Nirmala's neighbors do zari work and embroidery. So we caught a bus and headed towards the factory area. The bus was really crowded. At every stop, more and more people got on and hardly anyone seemed to get off. People were pushing others to make more space for themselves. My cousin guided me to a corner so that we would not get squashed. I wondered how people travel like this every day. As the bus entered the factory area, people started getting off. We also got off soon at a crossing. What a relief that was. There were a large number of people sitting on railings or in groups at the crossing. They seemed to be waiting for someone. Some groups had people on scooters standing by and talking with them. My cousin explained that this place was called Labor Chowk. These were daily wage laborers who work as helpers to masons. They dig at construction sites, lift roads, or unload trucks in the market, dig pipelines and telephone cables, and also build roads. There are thousands of such casual workers in the city. We enter the factory area to find it full of small workshops. There seem to be endless rows of them. In one section, we saw people working in a small room on sewing machines where cloth was being stitched. One person operated one sewing machine. Clothes that had been stitched were stacked on one side of the room. We located Nirmala in the stitching unit. She was happy to meet my cousin and promised to get zari work done on my dress. Nirmala works as a tailor in an export garment unit. The factory where she works makes summer clothes for people in foreign countries like USA, UK, Germany, and the Netherlands. Workers like Nirmala have to work very long hours in the months from December to April. A normal working day begins at 9 a.m. and finishes only by 10 p.m., sometimes even later. She works for 6 days a week. At times when the works need to be done urgently, she works on Sundays too. Nirmala is paid rupees 80 a day for 8 hours and rupees 40 extra for working late. By June, the work is over and the factory reduces its staff. Nirmala will also be asked to leave. For about 3 or 4 months in the year, there is no work for her. Most workers like Nirmala are employed on what is known as casual basis. That means they are required to come as and when the employer needs them. They are employed when the employer gets large orders or during certain seasons. At other times of the year, they have to find some other work. Jobs like Nirmala's are not permanent. If workers complain about their pay or working conditions, they are asked to leave. There is no job security or protection. If there is ill treatment, they are also expected to work very long hours. For example, in the cloth mill units, the workers work on day and night shifts, with each shift lasting 12 hours. One worker works on one machine for 12 hours and then is replaced by another on the same machine for the next 12 hours. In the office area, my aunt Sudha works as a marketing manager. She had asked us to reach her office before 5:30 p.m. We thought we would get late, so we took an auto rickshaw that managed to get us there just in time. Her office was in an area surrounded by tall buildings. There were hundreds of people coming out. Some headed for the car park, while others went towards the row of buses. My aunt is a marketing manager in a company which manufactures biscuits. The factory where the biscuits are made is outside the city. She supervises the work of 50 salespersons who travel to different parts of the city. They get orders from shopkeepers and collect payments from them. She had divided the city into 6 regions, and once a week she meets the salesperson of each region. She checks their progress report and discusses problems they face. She has to plan the sales in the entire city and often has to work late and travel to different places. She gets a regular salary every month and is a permanent worker with the company. She can expect her job to continue for a long period of time. Being a permanent worker, she also gets other benefits such as the following: savings for old age. A part of her salary is kept in a fund with the government. She will earn interest on these savings when she retires from this job. She will get this money and she can then live on that. Holidays. She gets off on Sundays and national holidays. She also gets some days as annual leave. Medical facilities for her family. Her company pays the medical expenses up to a certain amount for her and her family members. She gets medical leave if she falls ill and her salary is not cut if she takes this leave. There are many workers in the city who work in offices, factories, and government departments where they are employed as regular and permanent workers. They attend the same office or factory regularly. Their work is clearly identified. They get a regular salary. Unlike casual workers, they will not be asked to leave if the factory does not have much work. At the end of the day, we got into my aunt's car exhausted, but it had been so much fun, and I thought how interesting that so many people do say so many different things in the city. They have probably never met each other, but it is their work that ties them together and helps to make up city life. तो ये है इस चैप्टर का एक्सरसाइज. इसी के साथ हमारा ये चैप्टर कंप्लीट होता है. साथ ही हमारा क्लास 6 का पॉलिटी का बुक भी कंप्लीट हो गया है. और तो अगर आप चैनल पर नए हैं तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए और नोटिफिकेशन आइकन पर क्लिक कर दीजिए ताकि आपको सारे वीडियोस के अपडेट्स मिल सके. और अगर आपको वीडियो अच्छा लगे तो लाइक कर दीजिए और अपने दोस्तों के साथ शेयर करिए ताकि उन्हें भी हेल्प हो सके. तो हमारा ये सेशन यहीं तक था. थैंक यू. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग.